Good evening. Welcome to the Not So Perfect Bigfoot Show. Tonight I have a very special guest and I feel really honored to have him. Tonight I have the founder and creator of Sasquatch Theory, Miguel. Miguel had his first experience at 12 years old and he has spent his life and his time listening to people, investigating their experiences, and actually, he's a sounding board. He's someone that people can go to. He's someone that listens to them. He dedicates his time to their story. And without Miguel, a lot of people would not tell a story. I am a big fan of Miguel. I respect his work, and I am very honored to have him tonight. Miguel, where do you want to start at? You want to start out with a little bio of yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a pleasure to be on your show. And my name is Miguel. I'm from Central Missouri. And my first experience happened whenever I would say, about 12 years old. And that's just guessing because it happened years ago. But basically, I was living in my parents' place and I was in my bedroom. I was on my desktop computer. It was summertime and I had the window open because it was so hot. And I was watching TV. I think it was like Cartoon Network. I was watching Family Guy. It was probably around, I don't know, like 9, 10, 11 at night. And I was just sitting there doing my thing. I think I had like AOL on and I was chatting with my friends. And all of a sudden, I heard this call from the woods. It sounded like a werewolf that howled. And I mean, this is no coyote, no wolf out there. Like it was deep, guttural, and it sounded like it was blasted through a huge PA system, like what you would experience if you went to a big concert and you could feel the bass in your chest. And mind
Mm-hmm.
you, like I said, I'm inside with the window all the way up, and I don't know how to recreate it, but it was just like a woo, like deep, deep guttural, and it lasted, I don't know, like 5 to 8 seconds. And as soon as that creature howled, immediately, like probably a few feet away, something screamed like a woman being murdered. And I immediately went to the window and just slammed it shut. And I thought initially my brother's out there playing a prank. Somebody's out there in the woods with like a PA system and terrified me. I never knew what it was. I couldn't figure it out. And for many years, I wondered what the heck that was. It had to have been somebody playing a prank on me.
Um,
So I'll go ahead.
okay. I always describe what I heard as like when you're standing beside a tractor trailer or near tractor trailers on the interstate and they hit the Jake brake, and that just kind of the way it makes that sound, and you can kind of feel it, and it's kind of guttural. Would that be
Yeah.
simple? Okay, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
that's actually a good description. And I've mentioned that before to people when I talk about this. And another description would be like on Jurassic Park, the movie, the first one,
Mhm.
whenever they're in the Jeep and the T Rex comes out and it roars at them, like that
Yeah,
same type of velocity. Like that's how loud it was. So you know immediately when you hear something like that, it's no coyote and no person. But back then, I didn't know about cryptid creatures. I didn't think monsters were real. It had to have been somebody playing a prank on me.
you
But
thought it was your brother.
yeah, I thought it was my brother or something. That's the only explanation that my brain could come up with at
Yeah.
the time. I might mix up some encounters or experiences whenever I filmed them on my own. Like I had them written down on a piece of paper, like, and I was going through each one in order. But the next one that I can remember that I'm going to talk about is I was probably around a sophomore, junior in high school. No, probably a sophomore. Me and my buddy Bruce, we were driving through Crawford County here in Missouri, and we were on a highway called Highway KK, and we were going to the Merrimack River. We basically just wanted to road trip and just have some fun after
Yeah.
school. And it was about dark time. We're going down Highway KK. Um, we go around the curve to the right, it's like this large cedar thicket, and then we go around another curve going towards the left, and there's like a few houses, but it's pretty spread out. It's out in the country, and we're going down Highway KK, and way down at the bottom of the hill, there's like a possum crossing the road, and my buddy Bruce just like steps on the gas, and he drove one of those police intercept cars, like a Crown Vic,
Mhm.
and I thought to myself, like, what the heck is this guy doing? And we were going like 70 in a 55, and I guess he was going to smoke that possum. But when we get down to the bottom of that hill, it's already dark by this point in time. He's got his headlights on, and we're getting closer and closer to that possum, and all of a sudden this creature leaps out of the woods, grabs the possum, throws it up in its mouth, and then shakes it like a rag doll, and then tears back off into the woods. But this creature was a canine, and it was no dog that we have on record. I mean, this thing was built like a lion from Africa, and I'll try to give the best description of the creature that I can. Basically, it had like the head of a wolf, kind of like a hyena, but the part of its head, like that's the snout, was kind of like a
Mhm.
wolf or hyena, but the head was kind of like a pit bull, and you could see two pointy ears, and it was like a blue pit color, like a gray color,
Mhm.
and it had this hair, like the hair was really short, but around its neck, it had this hair like a lion, like the mange of a lion, kind of like a tutu or whatever.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's the best description I can give you.
Tutu's
And
fine.
yeah, and it like its chest was massive, just like a lion from Africa, and the back legs kind of tapered off, and they were a lot smaller. But I've never seen any creature like this. And when we passed the spot where the creature came out at, my buddy Bruce slows down. He's like, "Whoa, did you see that?" I said, "Yeah." "What was that?" He's like, "I don't know." And then we both just kind of like kept driving, and we didn't say anything to each other. And I think I was wondering like what that was more than him, or I don't know. We never talked about it, but it was years later that I was watching Monster Quest, and it was like a canine episode, and
Mhm.
they showed like a rendition of that same creature. It looked just like it. And I'm like, oh my God, that's what I seen that day. That's what it is. And I don't know what name they had for it. I don't think it was a dog man, but I don't know what you would call it, because this thing couldn't stand up on its back legs like a dog man could. So
Wow.
I I later learned that there's hellhounds, and
Mhm.
that's what it was. It was a hellhound.
Wow. So what is the I'm pretty sure if it was a hellhound, you looked into it. What do they represent? Are they flesh and blood? Well, of course, it took a possum, but have you ever looked into exactly what a hellhound is? Because I've heard tell of them, but I've always kind of leaned toward the dog man.
No, and I'll be honest, like the only thing I looked into was that Monster Quest episode when it just popped
Mhm.
up, and it blew my mind. And there was a video on YouTube where a guy had a thumbnail photo of a
Mhm.
video that he had of hellhounds, and it was like a jet black one, but it looked just like what I seen. And I didn't watch the video, so I tried going back to it, and I could not find that video. And I'm like, dang it, why didn't I not
Man.
save that? So I don't know. I tried doing research after that. I kind of kicked myself in the butt for not watching that video that popped up in my feed. Because sometimes you think, oh, I'll just be able to find that video later, and it's like, no,
And
it
when you
popped up
see,
for a reason.
yeah, it popped up. Yeah. So when you see something like that, it's already your mind's you know what you saw, but your mind automatically tries to make you second guess what you've just witnessed because it has no place to file it at. It's so unfamiliar, and a lot of people talk themselves out of what they just witnessed. Did you ever do that with your encounter on that? Because that's got to be incredible and scary too.
Yeah, what I thought was two wild dogs bred with each other, and that was the offspring of that, like a Cujo. And that's what
Cujo.
I thought. Yeah,
Yeah,
something like that. That's what I told myself for many years. It was a wild dog. Wasn't like a house dog, but
and you
I don't
guys
know.
speak of it? Just
No, no, I actually reconnected with him about 2 years ago, and I was like, "Hey, you remember that dog that we seen off KK going to Riverside Road?" And he's like, "No." And that kind of was disheartening because I don't know if he was lying or if he just didn't remember. It's like, dude,
he might have been protecting himself.
yeah, because his dad worked for like MoDOT, worked with the state patrol, and he was like a preppy person, and I don't think he wanted
I get
to
it.
mention it. Yeah, but maybe it was his pride. Maybe he didn't remember. It's hard to
So you
say.
were how old? You said you were how old?
When that happened, probably like 16.
So after that day, did you block it off? Because I know we have a tendency to do that to protect ourselves. Or did you?
Um, Not really. I just always wondered about it, and like I said, I convinced myself that it was some type of wild dog.
I
But
appreciate that.
yeah, yeah, maybe somebody has seen the same thing in Missouri or anywhere in the United States. Let me know. I'd like to see in the comments. Um, the next experience, maybe I'm missing one, but if I remember later, I'll jump back to it. Um, I was dating a girl at the time, and we decided to go camping at the Merrimack River.
Hmm.
And this is going the same way where I seen that hellhound. You go down KK, get on Riverside Road, and then one of my friends owned about 80 acres off the Merrimack River, and he was really cool. He's like, "Come on down anytime. Anytime you want to come, just show up." So we went down there to camp. It was probably around, I would say, June or July, and I don't know. I'm probably like, I would say about 23, 24 years old. And we went down there, set up our campsite, and there was all kinds of floaters going down the river. And at the Merrimack River, there's a bunch of people from St. Louis that come down and canoe. They get kayaks, inner tubes, and they get really drunk and float down the river. So it gets really populated with people. We were down there that day cooking burgers, brats, hot dogs. She had her son with them, and I think at the time he was like probably like 7 or 8 years old. And I remember we were watching Finding Bigfoot days leading to this camping trip. So whenever we were down there, we were talking about finding Bigfoot, and I asked her, "Do you really think there's encounters in Missouri?" And she's like, "I don't know. My uncle, he's seen one. He swears that he shot at one day down in Summersville, Missouri. It was snowing, and he followed these tracks through the snow and eventually saw the creature. And when he shot at the creature, it turned around and screamed at him." But
Wow.
that's what she told me, and I was like, "Oh, well, you never know. Maybe they are out there." I think more possibly, and this is what I told her, in the Pacific Northwest, Canada and Alaska, if they do exist, that's where they'd be at. But maybe because where she's from, down there in Summersville, Birch Tree, Missouri, it's really heavily wooded. Like you would get lost out there for days if you didn't know what you were doing, or anyone for that matter. But what I did is I went to my my Mercury Mountaineer. I had this Nike baseball bat, and I pulled it out and I did a few wood knocks on like a large maple tree that was growing off of the river. And to my amazement, like it sounded like a wood knock, like you could hear it echoing all up and down the river. And we did a few whoops, and her son started to join in. He was doing whoops as well. So I was doing like this loud whoop. He was doing these little kid whoops. And shortly after that, sorry, this large tree crashes down across the river. You could hear it like snapping, cracking, and when it hit the ground, it was like boom, like it was like a big tree, like a big full size tree. So it was comparable to somebody out there logging, and you can hear all the limbs and trees cracking and popping, and the loud impact from a full size tree. So we looked at each other like, "Whoa, that's kind of weird." And by this point, most of the floaters are clearing off the river. It's about to be dark time, so it's getting pretty quiet out there. And we start the fire, and we're sitting around the fire just talking. And I asked her, like, what do you think that was, that tree? Do you think that was random? I didn't know that Bigfoot did that. I just thought it was weird that it happened after I did the wood knocks and the whoops. And she said, I don't know. She went to go put her son to bed because he was getting tired. She put him in the tent, and we're sitting there by the fire, and it's probably about 9 o'clock. And then all of a sudden behind us, we hear this loud scream, just, and I mean, it was terrifying. Like, I've never heard anything like that. And immediately she looks at me and she's like, grab your gun, grab your gun. I'm like, what do you mean? What do you think that is? She's like, grab your gun. And I had a Glock 19 chambered in 9mm. And I just had this smirk on my face, like the Grinch. Like I couldn't believe what happened. And that smile just kept getting bigger ear to ear. And no joke, because in that moment I realized that Sasquatch existed.
Exist.
Yeah, and
Wow.
the thing about this scream was it was about 9 feet off the ground. Where we're at on the river bottom, it's flat on both sides of the river and then goes up because there's like bluffs and stuff. So I
Mhm.
know like a good almost 200 yards behind me is flat, or about 100 yards. And there's like a big slough back there until it starts going uphill. But yeah, whatever it was about 9 feet off the ground. And I asked her, I was like, do you think a mountain lion would come up behind us, climb up into a tree, and scream at us like that? She's like, I don't know. And then she asked me, do you think we're safe sleeping out here? I was like, yeah, I think we'll be all right. So we both got in the tent, slept. I slept through the whole night. Nothing happened. Maybe there was activity that night. I don't know, but I was pretty tired from being on the river. And I never forgot about that.
You were like a little kid again. It just woke up a lot of that curiosity you had and your experiences as a kid. You hit payday is what you did.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't believe that something answered the whoops and knocks, because you'll hear a lot of people that claim to be like big shots in the Bigfoot community. They call people who do wood knocks and calls idiots, morons, or whatever. And it's like, no, that actually works. If you go out there at the right time, right place, and you do that, you might call one in.
So, what do you have to say to those people that call people like us idiots and morons?
I mean, personally, I don't think they have as many experiences and encounters as I do,
It's,
but I just think it's an ego thing. I'm
I,
not
I'm
doubting what they've experienced. I just think they want to be the hot shot.
I think there's things that are done because of ego and things that are done out of passion, and that's what distinguishes people in the field. It's just my opinion.
Yeah, and I don't claim to know anything more than the next researcher. Actually, the more I learn, the less I know, and I'm just like anybody else.
You fall down the rabbit hole, don't you, Miguel?
Yeah, yeah, it's a rabbit hole. So basically, after that happened, we went back home, talked about it, and life went on. And at that house where I was living at, I remembered what happened down at the river, the tree falling, the scream. So I did the same whoop off of my back porch one day. It was after work, probably around 5:30. I went out to take the trash, and I was on the back porch, and I did this loud whoop, same one I did down at the river. And I'm pretty much emulating what I've heard like on the Ron Moorhead recordings, doing that like at a, I don't know, it's just like a really loud whoop call that I do. I don't even know if Bigfoot really does that, but it's just what's worked for me. But I did that, and it was almost getting dark. It wasn't quite dark yet, and I heard something coming through the woods, and it was like a bulldozer moving through the woods. Like if somebody put an S10 pickup truck in neutral and just let it roll down through the woods. Like you could hear like limbs and trees popping and snapping. Well, whatever this was zigzagging and making its way towards me. And I go inside and I get my ex. I'm like, hey, you need to come out here. Come out here now. There's something out here. So she steps out on the back deck with me, and this thing's still coming through the woods. And As it's snapping trees, zigzagging towards us, it stops right at the edge of the wood line, right where we can't see it, and everything gets real quiet. I'm thinking, what the heck is this? Never knew what that was, but yet again, something replied to my call. And I've had other experiences there. The place was extremely paranormal, and I don't know if like I had an attachment, if somebody died there, if something I did conjured up something, but there was a ton of activity that, I mean, honestly, we'd have to do another episode just to cover what happened in this house, but I'll try to like stick to some of the main things. Um Basically, I would hear tapping on the window. It'd be
Mm,
like somebody had a fingernail and would tap on the window like click, 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 click. Right next to me too, like where I had
wow.
my computer, there'd be a window and it'd be at nighttime. So when I'd look, there wouldn't be anything there. It happened about 3 or 4 times. So finally, when it happened again, I heard click, 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 or tap, 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 whatever. I got my Glock out because I already had it, and I ran outside and I was running around the house. I was doing circles and I just didn't see anything.
That wasn't very reassuring, was it? Not to
No,
find
because
anything.
I thought it was like I don't know, somebody, spying on us. There's another time whenever I was out there in the yard and I'm staring up at the stars. I love doing that. And I see this bright orange star. And I'm like, oh, that's got to be Mars. It looks like Mars to me. But it's almost like how you see in the movies where they pull the moon closer to them,
Yeah,
how the moon gets
it's good.
bigger. It was like that. This little orange star that stuck out more than the other stars, which I thought it was a planet, like I said, it started getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually it was like beach ball size right there above me. And it was like radiating this orange color. So I go back inside, tell my ex, hey, get out here, check this out. She comes out there and we're both just staring at this ball of light in the sky. And all of a sudden it moves from the west and it starts going southwest to the south. And then it's in front of the house. And by this point, it's pretty big and it's lighting up like an ambulance or like the lights off an ambulance or like police lights. Kind of looks like a disco ball just hanging up there in the sky. And we're both just staring at this thing. And all of a sudden, this thing just it goes like warp speed, like and just takes off. It looked like it got sucked into like a black hole, like the light got sucked into the
Wow.
hole. Yeah, and I
Wow.
knew right there that I'd seen a UFO. Like there's nothing else that can move that fast, and it was incredible. So I'm trying to think of what else has happened at that house. I don't know, just to like break it down. Long story short, I'd hear voices in that house, people talking. Um, One time in that house, actually a few times, we would hear a baby, like an infant baby, crying, 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 gasping for air, like it needed its mother. And I'd be looking all over. I'd be looking underneath the bed, in every room, down in the basement. Like, where is this baby at? Like, somebody left a baby on my front porch. And I mean, at one point, I was trying to convince myself that it was a cat until it was like choking on its own breath, like crying for its mother. And I was like, oh my God, there's a baby out here. We could never figure out what was producing that sound.
Did that activity start about the same time as your activity? I'm gonna say it's a Bigfoot coming through there, or that, or it was a dog man. Did that about happen at the same time, or was it? Did it start
Around the
happening?
same time frame, yeah.
Wow.
Not like at the exact same time, but I mean, months have went by, since I was down at the Merrimack River and got screamed at, and years have went by, and there was just paranormal activity going on. And it wasn't like every day; it was like every 2 weeks, and sometimes every other month. But every now and then there'd be something. Um, I always knew that something happened because my Siberian Husky would alert me to it, and whenever like activity would take place, he would be looking in the same direction. He wouldn't look at me. He would just be looking where the sounds came from. And you could tell he was scared. Like he was freaked out just as much as I was. And that was the good thing, was having that husky around, because at certain points you were like questioning your own sanity. Like, is this really happening? But when you have a pet there that's like on edge as well, staring into that spot where you heard that, it really reassures you that you're not crazy. Something's really happening. And I mean, the activity will kind of drive you nuts, honestly. Like, it'll really mess with your mental health as far as like having people to talk to and just wondering about the afterlife and God, the devil, Satan, demons, things like that, and it'll really mess with you if you actually experience this type of activity. Um, One of those apps that you can download where you ask it questions, like the Spirit Box or whatever. I remember it was like a Sunday morning. I was walking through the house and I asked it, like, what color are my walls? Immediately it said brown. I was like, ooh, that's accurate. And then I walked to the back, like through the kitchen, through the dining room, and there's like a sliding glass door. And it was a Sunday morning, so like it was really nice outside. You can hear the birds chirping, you could see the beams of light shining down. There's flowers, and it said nature, beautiful. I was like, okay, that's pretty weird. And then I walked past my guitar, and it said music, guitar. I'm like, oh, okay. So I asked, what color are your eyes? And it said black. And I shut that app down. I was like, oh my God.
Absolutely. You weren't expecting that one, were you?
No.
I don't know if it makes you feel better. If you see my cat, Swamp Kitty, she's trying to crash the show. If I lock her up, she'll take out the she'll probably take the door off the hinges, so I apologize. Um, so if
That's
it
fine.
makes you thank you. If it makes you feel better, there's a gentleman in North Carolina, and he's really famous for he was abducted by UFOs. Very intelligent man, multimillionaire, business owner, lots of common sense. What he can stand in his yard and he can see those orange orbs, and he'll get them on videotape. So I don't know if that gives you some validation, but there's something about those orange orbs, and he did not see them when everything was happening. He lost time,
Mhm.
but after that is when the orange orbs started appearing, and he would literally videotape them coming in, and they'd get bigger and bigger, and they, you know, shoot in different directions. So I don't know if that will give you any type of validation, but it's it's pretty similar to what you experienced.
Yeah, and I've experienced a lot more ever since that. I got a few on video as well, pretty good quality too, and it still happens to this day. So basically, after I was living there, um, me and that girl had split up, and I don't know, life really started to go south from there. I lost my job. My friends moved away, and I had to move out of that house, and I was living on my family's property, and basically, just life really sucked, and I was like in a crappy place, basically. So I would try to make things better by walking around the property and just like scouting for deer, looking for edible mushrooms, and setting up trail cameras, things like that. And one day I went into town. Whenever I was coming back to my place, I thought, oh, that trail camera's in the woods. I'm going to check that SD card and see what's on it. So, like, I immediately hit the brakes on my Mustang, pulled in at the top of the driveway, walked down in the woods, checked the card, walked back to my car, and I was sitting there in front of my car on the driveway. It's a forested area, and I'm on my phone, and all of a sudden I hear a whistle to my left, like a loud whistle. I can't do it right now. I'm like, loud whistle. And then right in front of me, I hear another one just like it. But this one was like dual tone. It had like a sound to it, but a high pitch and a low tone. And then like I was almost expecting another one to my right, and then sure enough, another whistle went off. So there was like three different individuals. I thought somebody was coming up the driveway towards my car. I was like, who the heck is that? Somebody's in the woods. They're watching me. There's trespassers. Someone's in there. And I just got this really weird vibe, and I could never figure out what it was. But the only thing I could possibly think of who could have been in there was some trespassers, like crackheads or people watching me or something. And I kept thinking about it that day. I went back to the house, checked the SD card, didn't see too much on it, and I couldn't stop thinking about that. So I walked back up to that spot, and by this point, it's getting dark, and then I see these two orange orbs floating through the woods. And I'm like, what the heck is that? It's got to be like somebody with lanterns, cell phones, walking through the woods, but it was really smooth and it was going down the ridge, paralleling the road. And by this point, it's dark. I'm like, oh, something told me though, like I didn't hear a voice or anything, but like I had the feeling, don't go near those. And I followed my gut. I'm like, I'm not going near whatever that is because something doesn't seem right. By this point, it's fully dark, and I'm walking back to my house down the driveway through the woods, and it's probably like a quarter mile. And then as I'm halfway down the driveway, I hear this loud thump. Boom. Almost like a big buck took off, but you didn't hear like the jump sounds. It was just one loud boom, like somebody picked up a big log and just dropped it on the solid ground. And I'm like, what the heck is that? And all the hairs on the back of my neck are standing up. And I even say that's a messed up feeling with a little bit of cussing. That's a messed up feeling. And I hear something on all fours coming at me, and it's pitch black, and it does three whoops, like whoop, 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 right there next to where I heard that loud thump. I'm like, oh crap, like what is this? Like something's going on. And I'll tell you on your show because I always leave this out whenever I tell it on other shows or whenever I told it on my own channel. And the reason is because I don't talk to these people anymore. But whenever I was at the top of the driveway and I heard three whistles, there was two other people with me.
Okay.
And they weren't in the car with me, but they ended up showing up. But I'm not friends with them anymore. I don't talk to them or associate with them. So I just left them out every time I told my story. But two other people heard it. And whenever the whistles went off, one of the guy's eyes were like wide open. And he was like looking at me for confirmation. I'm like, I don't know what that is. The other guy that was with us, he's like, it's Sasquatch. It's Sasquatch. That's Bigfoot. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And we just kind of shook it off. I was like, somebody's coming. Somebody's coming up the driveway. But yeah, there were other people there. So I could literally call those people and ask them. And I guarantee you they'd be like, yeah, that really happened. But anyways, after I heard that thump, the three whoops, I go back to my house and I'm like wondering what the heck that was. And what that guy said whenever I heard the whistles, that it's Sasquatch, like stayed in my mind. And I'm like, what the heck? I ended up watching this show, and it was this lady in Nepal, and she said like this Bigfoot showed up behind her and it did this whistle, like a loud, sharp whistle. And I'm like, whoa, that's what happened up the driveway. Like these things can whistle. I didn't know that. And I just tried figuring out what was out there. Every time I'd go out there, something wild would happen. I would find like rabbits with their heads missing in the middle of the road. There'd
Wow.
be like mushrooms in my chair, or like mushrooms like in the middle of the trail. I used to like take out my cell phone because I'd be wearing like gym shorts. I take out my cell phone because like whenever I'd be walking, it'd like weigh down my shorts. But I put it on this old telephone post that was on the side of the road in the woods. I'd put it like behind there. One day I went there was a mushroom sitting right there. Like
Wow.
maybe that mushroom fell out of that oak tree and landed right there. But I felt like it was a gift. I'd find feathers in the middle of the trail. It'd usually be like a blue jay feather right there in the middle of the trail. No, I didn't think much of it, but when you find it over and over and over, it's like, how is it always in the middle of the trail? Whether it's the road or the trails that go off the road. Like it's always in the middle. And I've seen right there where the whistles happen, there's this huge arch. It was an oak tree, and then there was like this other tree holding it up, but there was almost like a little TP formation around it. I'm like, maybe that's one of those structures. So I followed where this arch was pointed towards. I went down the drainage into the woods, and it leads to a creek. And right there where that arch was pointing, there's like this big giant X structure and a
Yeah.
bunch of like arches weaved into it. I'm like, okay, that's pretty weird. And
So you
that's,
got all of that. You literally got all the classic signs of a Bigfoot, or I call them Bigfoot, you call them Sasquatch, of a Sasquatch right there, to include, I guess, orange orbs. And I mean, because everything has energy. I
mm-hmm,
mean, the land has energy, it has the history, people have energy. I know I hear people say some people are marked. I think it's their energy. And I think that sometimes you can have, I'm not going to say it's like a guardian angel, and you can tell me I'm just not correct at all. That's fine. I'm just throwing it out there because it is Sasquatch theory, by the way. Um, Sometimes when we're at dark, in our deepest, darkest place in life, and we're struggling through things, I do believe that we do attract things that can be good or bad depending on the energy of the person. And I think the world, I mean, I think nature was responding to your energy. I think the orbs, I think the Sasquatch, and we both know it, we both pretty much know it was Sasquatch coming down the mountain and whistling at you. You know, what else is going to do that? What else is going
yeah,
to? I heard someone say that, I saw the photo of the rabbit, and someone says, "Well, a hawk did that." You could, but when you find them over and over, hawks don't just drop their prey like that.
yeah. A lot of people are gonna say it's an owl, but like they're not understanding that in this spot, like there's been a lot of Bigfoot activity and the sightings that I'm about to talk about. And by this point, I have no idea that those orbs are connected to Sasquatch after I have my eye sighting encounters. And yeah, before I start these encounters, um, right before that, or not right before that, a year before that. So we're jumping back a year, okay? Because I don't want to miss this part. After I lost my job, I had found a job at a meat processing plant. And I don't know why I worked there. It was kind of brutal, but it was just a job that I took at the time. But I asked the owner there, "Hey, you know of any good public land places that I can go bow hunt at? I'm pretty new to bow hunting and trying to understand like how public land works." And he's like, "Oh yeah, absolutely." He's like, "There's this place," and I can't give away the location, but he said behind Merrimack Springs, and he said when you go there, it's just covered with deer. There's deer everywhere. He said if you don't count about 30, 60 deer going there, then you did something wrong. I'm like, okay, I want to know more about this place. So he got his pen out, wrote the directions on a napkin. He's like, you go down this highway, you make a left here, you go down through there. He's like, you know where all this is? And I honestly didn't know. I was just like, yeah, yeah. Because I really just wanted to know so I can go there. So after work that day, I was like, I'm going to go scout this place out. And it's September 14th, the day before bow season. I think it was like a Friday. And I ended up finding that actual place that he was talking about, and it's really remote. And I was shocked that I found it. But basically, I go down the road all the way down to the dead end. I park, open up the Mustang door, shut the door, and then get out. And there's like this big giant cliff, and you can see like the Merrimack River, and across the river is like the state park. Like, dang, that's going to be a job to climb down this hill, this cliff, and then carry your bow across the river through like a big giant slough on the other side, and then with your deer stand and everything, like that's going to be a lot of work. Holy crap. But whenever I turned back around to walk back to my car, there was like this black figure like crawled in the woods. And then I thought, like, that's a bear. Holy moly, that's a bear. And I didn't see if it was a bear. It just had that jet black color, that fur. And whenever I finally got a good look at it, it hid behind this large oak tree. And like, let's say this is the oak tree, it like it slowly hid behind the tree. Like I can't really do it right, but like
The peaker.
that's all I saw was just like something slowly hide. And it was like slow motion, that was what I'm trying to get at. And all I saw was like this big black mass of fur, almost like a Christmas tree. Like it tapered down and it slowly hid behind the tree and then disappeared. And I'm like, dang, if that was a bear, if that's a black bear, that's a really smart creature to know to hide like that behind a tree. And I stared at that tree. I didn't see anything. And then I was like, okay, whatever this is gone. So that's what happened there. The next morning, I got in there. I remember seeing the sun start to come up as I was parked there. And you could start to see like orange in the sky. It was pitch black. And I'm like, I'm not going down in there. There's a bear in there. I'm not going to hunt that spot. And that's what I thought. So we're going back to my area, the driveway, where I had the whistles, the orbs. That was a year ago where I saw that black figure hide behind the tree
Oh,
behind Merrimack Springs. So we're going back to where I was talking about the orbs, the whistles, the gifting, the structures, and I kept hearing that thump sound. I'd go in the woods, even if it was the middle of the day, I'd hear boom, like somebody like picked up a big log and just dropped it on the ground. And that was really getting to me. I think I maybe heard a couple of wood knocks, just maybe.
yeah.
And I started carrying my camcorder. I was like, whatever this is, if it is Bigfoot, I'm going to
Hmm.
get it on film. Like, I don't care. I had this camcorder because I started this hunting channel on YouTube called Outdoor Premonition, and I was going to self film all my own hunts. So I started carrying this camcorder around, and I thought, if this thing is out there, I'm going to get it on film. So I kept carrying it out there, and just like filming whatever I could. I didn't know what I was doing. Everything was so shaky because I didn't know how to hold the camera, how to use it. Finally, I kind of gave up bringing it out there. Like it got really repetitive bringing a camera out for no reason because I couldn't get anything on film. And one day, the chanterelle mushrooms were growing in full force. They were all over the woods there, all around the driveway, all the way down to the creek bottom. And I thought, man, this is awesome. So I had this camouflage backpack, and I was picking the chanterelle mushrooms, and I was putting them in the backpack. And I thought, okay, if these things are growing all around here, the deeper I go into the woods, the more I'm going to find. So I went real deep in the woods and I started noticing there was less chanterelle mushrooms. And I was like, okay, so these things are growing around my house. Let me go back there and I'm going to pick whatever's around my place. So basically, I was just zigzagging through the woods, going in different directions, picking these mushrooms. Well, eventually the backpack got filled up with chanterelles. I was like, all right, I got plenty of mushrooms. I'm going to go back to my house. And whenever I hit the driveway again, I'm going back to the house. I'm almost to the house. Like I can see my Mustang. I can start to see the driveway. And I hear something like a squirrel or a bird just, and I look over to my left. I don't see anything. I'm like, okay, must have been a bird or a squirrel. So I take like 2 or 3 more steps. I hear that same sound again. And I look over and I see this jet black Sasquatch stand up. He slowly like stands up like he was crouched down and he walks off into the woods, just like the Patterson Gimlin film. It happened to my left. And he looked over at me a few times, just like gave me the cold shoulder look, like I don't know if he thought I had a gun or something, but he looked at me about 2 or 3 times. And basically, this creature was what I thought at the time 6.5 feet. Later on, I think it was about 8 feet tall because whenever I pointed at a tree, and I was like, he was about that high, and I walked up to that spot. It was about 8.5 feet tall. So I was like, man, that thing was way taller than 6.5 feet tall. But basically, it had a round head, pretty big brow ridge, jet black almond shaped eyes. His face looked like, and like, not trying to be racist, he looked like Mike Tyson. Like, that's what he looked like. Like, he looked really mean. Like, if you mess with him, he was going to rip your head off. And you could see the wrinkles on his face. The hair was jet black, like coal black. And he had like a flat nose. His chin almost looked like it was connected to his chest. And like I said, every time he looked at me over his shoulder, it was like, I don't want to say pure evil, but it was like pure evil. Not saying that's what they are, but
If
it
that's
was,
how it made you
it was
make,
intense.
if that's the impression that it gave you, you're allowed to say that and not apologize about it.
Yeah. And he had these two white stripes going down his back, like one going down his shoulder blade to about above his butt, and it was like a lightning stripe, almost kind of like a skunk. He had one going down one side of his shoulder blade and then another one on the other side. And basically there was a little bit of whitish gray to it. So he was jet black, but he had those white stripes going down his back. And
Wow.
he walked off. I saw him for a good 5 to 8 seconds as he walked off to the woods. He wasn't like a fast walk like Patty, like the Patterson Gimlin footage. It wasn't like a quick walk like that. It was just a slow walk. And once he disappeared into the oak trees, I thought like, oh man, that was a Bigfoot. Like, that's what that was. And when I was watching him, it seemed like time stood still. Like, all the thoughts were like vacuumed out of my mind. Like, I was hyper focused on that. Like, nothing else mattered other than what I was looking at. And I was really fixated on that creature. So once he disappeared, I kind of like snapped back to reality. I was like, oh my God, that's what that was. Did I really see that? Is that really what I seen? I'm telling you, this was like 30, 40 feet into the woods. Like, it was right there. So I know what I'd seen, but I was contemplating in my mind if that was actually what I had encountered. And immediately I took off running down the driveway, going through the parking lot. There's another side road that goes around, and I'm going to cut this creature off. So as I'm going into the woods, there's this barbed wire fence, and I step over the fence. I'm like, where is this creature? Because he was heading down towards the creek whenever he left. It's like, I got to find him. And I was standing there just because I'm not just going to walk through the woods or run through the woods. Whenever I look for an animal, like, I stop, listen, watch, go, stop, and take a few more steps. But I crossed the fence, and as I'm standing there, I hear something like start huffing, like,
Mm.
it sounded like a big caveman. I know a lot of the listeners are going to be like, that's a white-tailed deer. Listen, I've seen white-tailed deer since I was a little bitty kid. I used to spook deer. That was like the funnest thing to do. Anytime I could see a deer, I'd be like, oh, awesome, I saw a deer. I know what they sound like. I know they blow. They'll like snort, wheeze, to alert the rest of the group. What
Yeah.
I heard was different. This was like a giant, sound like a grizzly bear. Like, it was
It was.
it was angry that I was following it. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Am I getting blurry? Do I need to turn on a light?
You're fine. I was gonna tell you I look orange, but that's it's the not so perfect Bigfoot show, so we're gonna roll with it. And you look great, by the way. I'm just got one question. You just seen a Sasquatch, and now you want to cut it off. What the hell were you thinking?
Um, I didn't have anything to live for, honestly, and I wanted to make sure that's what I'd seen, and I was gonna figure it out. But once I heard that, though, for some reason, once you hear it, like, yeah, you see it, but once you hear it, it really confirms what you had encountered. And I was like, there's no way, there's no way I'm going to take another step further into the woods. And I turned around just shaking my head in disbelief. Like, I can't believe what I had seen. Like, no one's going to believe this. No one's going to believe this. Absolutely no one. And I thought about it for like a good 2 or 3 weeks. And as I went out there in the woods, the same stuff kept happening, like the thumps, um, occasional wood knocks, finding strange things. There's a lot of stuff that's happened, just strange structures. But I was taking out my camera again. I'm like, oh man, I'm going to film one of these things. But I lost motivation because I went out there every day for 3 weeks. It doesn't sound like a very long time, but when you're out there every single day bringing out a camera, you tell yourself, like, you didn't see that. This is the only time you're ever going to see that. You really think you're going to see another one, Miguel? Like, do you really think that's going to happen? Like, that was your one shot. And again, I got tired of bringing out this camcorder. I know it sounds like an excuse, but like, I quit bringing it out. And one day, me and that ex girl or whatever, the one that I was living with, where the paranormal stuff happened, we were
Mhm.
still kind of talking, and then like we officially like broke it off. There's some things that happened, and I was pretty angry, and I was like hating life. So I did the only thing I knew to do which was to walk up that driveway, walk through the woods to decompress. I didn't bring the camera. I didn't bring my cell phone. I was angry at the world, at everything. And I walked past the spot where I seen the jet black Sasquatch with the white stripes, and I go all the way up to the top of the driveway where I heard the whistles, and it's a big circle driveway, so I'm going around the other side. And for some reason, like I, I, I kind of got OCD about like walking a certain way. I would wear Crocs, and it was almost like a game of don't step on the crack or you'll break your mom's back kind of deal. So I
Yeah.
was doing that to be like real quiet. Like I'd take a few steps, stop, listen for like 5 minutes, and then take a few more steps. For some reason, it was like wired into my brain because I was trying to figure out what this was. And I was still doing that for some reason. Maybe it's like, I don't know, some weird habit that I developed. But
It might be the hunter in you.
yeah, that and the nervousness, anxiety, bull crap that I was going through. And I was doing that, being real quiet. And this part of the driveway is like paved. Um it's like asphalt or whatever. It's paved road. So it's like real quiet, and I was being really sneaky. Well, I accidentally stepped on this white rock, and it made this sound like and my foot dragged across the pavement with this rock underneath and made like that scraping sound.
Hmm.
And I saw this little black creature, just like what I'd seen at Merrimack Springs, something jet black, scurry on all fours. And I'm watching it. I'm like, what the heck is that? Is that like a group of three turkeys, a hog, or a bear? What is that? And I'm trying to look through the woods because it's July by this point. When I seen the jet black Sasquatch with white stripes, it was June. So now it's July. And so it's summertime, and what I'm getting at is the woods is really thick during that time of year. There's a lot of foliage on the trees, so I'm seeing this hairy black mass move through the woods. And finally, like, I got my right hand on my right knee, and I'm looking, trying to see what it is, kind of like swaying back and forth, trying to look through like a gap in the woods. And I see the same thing that I seen behind Merrimack Springs. I see this creature slowly hide behind the tree. And all I see is like a big black arm, just like black hair that tapers down, jet black, slowly disappear behind the oak tree. And I'm staring. I'm like, oh man, whatever this is, it's gone now. There's nothing there. And I'm still staring. And all of a sudden, this creature steps out from behind the tree, like that. And he's just like, I'm the creature now. He's basically looking like this. He's looking that way. Sorry. He's got his chest puffed up like this. He's jet black. He has like this big conical shaped head. I mean, big. Normally you hear reports and they're like maybe 6 inches above the brow ridge. Like this thing was like a foot and a half above the brow ridge. So like when you look to the side, it was like Nefertiti. He was
Oh,
jet black, covered in hair, and God, I don't know how to explain it. He had these big wide eyes, like about the size of a soda can, and it was all white, and the inside was like a black pupil. So big wide eyes, like a child. If you ever look into a little toddler's eyes, it's like really white, a lot wider than our eyes. It
Mm-hmm.
was like that. He had long,
Wow.
thin lips. He had canines that went down, but they're real small canines, and he was kind of goofy looking, like kind of like they're like buck teeth, but like a vampire kind of style. But
Overbite.
yeah, he had an overbite, and like I said, he was jet black. The hair was probably about 3 or 4 inches. You couldn't really see like the features like you could on the Sasquatch that I just described earlier, and like because his hair was like covering his face, you just saw these big wide eyes. It gave you the impression of like Pac-Man, those creatures that chase Pac-Man around.
The ghost.
It, yeah, it was like that, but he was probably about 4.5 feet tall. So he was a little guy. He was built like a beer keg, and
Wow.
he had these long arms, big forearms. Like the forearms were just as big as like the biceps, and like the hair kind of tapered off his hands and stuff. But mainly what I'd seen was like from like the chest up. But yeah, he's sitting there, he's perked up like this because you could tell he thought he heard something, and I'm just like amazed by what I'm looking at. You could see like the beams of the sun hitting him. Like it was a really nice summer day, super nice day. So you could see the shine like on his hair. It kind of had like the shine to it. And the wind would slowly pick up like this slight breeze, and you could see all the follicles of hair like blowing around, kind of like if you had a blow dryer on your hair and had it like on low.
Yeah.
It was like moving around like lightly.
Wow.
And he's just standing there, and it was like this, I don't know, time slowed down, and he slowly pans from his left to his right, and he sees me. His eyes go boom, like he is shocked. And we're staring at each other. And in that moment, I was like feeling my pockets because I'm like, where's my cell phone? Crap, I don't have my camera. And I'm just like, oh, well, you might as well watch and see what this thing does. So he pans from his left to his right. He looks at me. His eyes get really big. And he kind of like goes from, oh, crap, to time to get serious and do what a Sasquatch does.
Oh,
So he kind of like puffs up like this. And then, like, this is him. He puffs up and he shoots down like that, like a fish, like spooking in water. It was
wow.
like flash speed. So he just boom, shoots behind the tree because there's like a tree there, but there's also like this undergrowth next to the tree. So that's how I can only see like halfway up. But yeah, when he shoots down, he like goes behind the tree, and I was looking left, right of the tree, and you didn't hear him run off. You didn't hear him jump, run. Like once he hid behind the tree, that was it. He was gone. There was no like, oh, I'm going to chase this creature down. He pulled some type of like Houdini trick to where he just like vanished. And I didn't see him vanish, but I think it was more speed than anything and during this encounter, and it shocked me. But I wasn't going to go chase this creature because whenever I seen that juvenile, I thought if there's a baby, that means mom and dad are
Okay.
around. And maybe that one creature I seen 3 weeks ago, the jet black one with the white stripes, maybe that's mom, maybe that's dad, and I don't want to find out. So I look behind me, like there's got to be more around. Everything was real quiet. The wood just got real still.
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, these
Wow.
things exist. God is real. Ghosts are real. Everything we've heard about is real. Like dog man, demons, for sure God's real. And that means like the government's lying to us. That means like the news media is lying to us because what I had seen confirmed everything that people say is not true. And I got to witness it. And this juvenile, he was only like 20, 30 feet in the woods. He was right there, right off the driveway road. So I got a really good look at him. But it's really hard to describe his features. He kind of had like a protruding face a little bit, not like a snout, but kind of like Homer Simpson.
Mhm.
Like it kind of stuck out a
Yeah.
little bit, but just a big cone shaped head, kind of like KKK guy, like the people that wear the white gowns. It
Yeah.
was like that.
Mhm.
But like I said, like that, you can't see it, but that cone shaped head, I can't line it up, was like sticking up like really far. I remember whenever I looked at that cone shaped head, kind of like when you're like in St. Louis in the city, or I don't know what city you got near you, but when you when you're driving through the city and you're in between big buildings, how your eyes had to scan it to like see it
Yeah.
all. I remember having to do that with his conical shaped head. Like it was like looking up. I don't know how to explain it to you.
That would explain the Christmas tree description you gave earlier.
Yeah, with the hair.
Hmm.
Yeah, they all had that.
But did you start getting when you're seeing it, you're in the moment, and like I said, when people tell me I should have gotten scared or because I said I wasn't scared at the moment, then it must not have happened. It's when it goes out of sight is when you get nervous, right? Because you have no line of sight on it. You don't know where it's at, where it's going.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't want to go chasing after it because
No doubt.
I just got what I just got the answer that I've been looking for. And whenever I seen that jet black Sasquatch with the white stripes 3 weeks before that, I was really doubting my sanity. Like, did I really see that? Did I really see that? Do they exist? I know I saw it, but do they exist? Even though I saw it, I know it's a weird thing to ask yourself, but I
No,
don't
it's
know.
not. It's not. No, it's not. Because if you know what you saw, but it's I couldn't tell you how many people I talked to where your mind tries to put it in a filter, put it in a file, and if it can't find a place where it fits in that file, then I mean you're going to go in denial, and sometimes you can't. Sometimes your mind just protects you from what you just saw, and you go in denial and you start questioning yourself. And then when you do step up and you do start talking about it, you have some, for lack of better word, smart aleck that just questions you and tells you, you know, what you saw was not real, and it makes it makes it hard for people to be honest and open and continue to tell their stories. It seems like they get shut down from the get go. And but I think your mind tries to file it away somewhere when it doesn't fit in a category. You start questioning yourself. That's just
Yeah,
me.
absolutely. I had no place to file this in my mind, and it was just bouncing around back and forth, and there was no storage place for it. But whenever I seen that juvenile, my brain like opened up a file cabinet, made a new spot that said
Mm.
Sasquatch, and shut it. I was like, yeah, yeah, like
Man, you got it.
I know what I'd seen, and yeah, after I seen that juvenile, I remember I kept saying, oh my god, like they are real. I kept saying that over, like, oh my god, like I couldn't believe it. I was honestly excited because I think any other person, any normal human being,
Hmm.
would have been terrified or would have this really would have affected them mentally. But the
Hmm.
fact that I was such a bad place, I was already in a dark place in my life. This actually lifted me up. It did the reverse effect for me, and it gave me more hope that there's more out there in life other than what I'm experiencing. And all the junk that I was thinking about before, like the breakup, losing my house, losing my
Hmm.
job, didn't matter anymore. It's like I quit thinking about it because I'd seen this and that was the only thing I could think about. There was no time to think about negativity because this occupied that space and there was nothing else that was going to get in the way of that. So, oh, go ahead.
No, you're fine. I said that's incredible.
Yeah, yeah. So I kind of feel like they saved me from doom, basically, within my own mind, and I thought too, like, all right, now I had seen two, actually three, because that's what that was behind
Mhm.
Merrimack Springs that crawled just like this juvenile, and that's what I was going to get at. That juvenile crawled just like what I'd seen at Merrimack Springs, that hid behind a tree. And I knew, like, whenever I'd seen that, here we go again. It's gone, and then it stepped out, and I was like, "That's what that was. That's what I'd seen a year ago. That was a Sasquatch. I can't believe it."
Wow. Maybe
Yeah,
you should be Sasquatch therapy instead of Sasquatch theory.
essentially, that's really what it is. And I try to do my best for people, and a lot of times
You do a good job.
I don't do a good job. I appreciate you for saying that, but sometimes I don't feel like it because there's so many people, and it's like you can only talk to so many people for the limited time that you have in a day. But after this encounter, I started noticing my dogs going nuts. Like they'd be barking all the time. I had two German shepherds, One German Shepherd was mixed with a pit bull, and then the other German Shepherd, I don't know what she was mixed with, but she looked just like a pit bull or like a German Shepherd. She had one blue eye, and she was black and brown. The other German Shepherd, he was just pure black. Even his eyes were black because he was mixed with a pit bull. And then I had my Siberian Husky, of course. He's my best buddy. He's still alive today. But the two German Shepherds, they would go nuts. They'd be barking into the wood line all day long. I couldn't put them in their pen. They got this living area outside, and they would jump the fence. They could climb the fence and jump it. And the fence is probably like 5 feet tall, so they would climb it and jump
Wow.
out. I was like, what am I going to do about these dogs? Me and my ex broke up. She left me with her dogs, our dogs, whatever you want to call it. I got to take care of these dogs. And I'm struggling because I can barely take care of myself. I'm trying to like get back on my feet. And I noticed Sinister, one of the German Shepherds, that's the jet black one with the black eyes. I called him Sinister. Um, he would go into the woods. It'd be 2 in the morning, just all night long down at the creek bottom. And I'm like, what is he barking at? I noticed he was always barking in the same area. Well, one day, Sinister went missing. Like, what the heck? He just vanished. Like, there's no more Sinister. Where'd he go? And about 2 weeks later, Macy, that was the other dog, she went missing too. And I thought, what the heck? Like, where did this dog go? That's weird that they both went missing, like one after another. Like something's not right. And I went up there to where I heard those whistles. I seen the orbs, and I found this skull. This was sometime after that, and I'm like, what is this skull? And I noticed like the teeth were all sharp. They were dental white,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought, oh crap, that's Macy. And that's my dog. I never found the other one, but I found her, and I beat myself up all the time because I failed to take care of those dogs. And I don't know if it was Bigfoot, but I know that they were barking into the woods at something. And where they were barking at is where I
Mm-hmm.
had my encounters at, where the activity was taking place. And later on, I learned that these things will take your dogs. The dogs can pick up on them, and some of them they don't like dogs. But I never seen a Sasquatch take
Mm-hmm.
them. But I'm thinking that's what it was.
Well, let me say this to you, okay?
Mm.
Um, as someone that used to train dogs and work with dogs and just knows the character of dogs, you've got to quit beating yourself up over that. There's nothing you could have done to prevent that because dogs are dogs. To pin them up in the house, to put them on a chain, you would have slowly taken their will to live from them. You would have basically did to them what was been had done to you.
Mm.
And they went out like dogs with their boots on. There is absolutely nothing you could have done.
Yeah.
They they I hate to say it, but they went out with their boots on doing what dogs do. And you have got to stop thinking about what if I did this and what if I done that. You did your best. And in the end, dogs are going to be dogs. If you put them on chains, if you put them in the house, they would not have been happy.
Yeah. This is
Just,
a weird
yeah.
part that I never talk about it to anybody, but and I don't do this anymore, but those people that can like read your future or
Mhm.
tell you whatever. I don't know what it's called. I call it witchcraft, but basically, I asked them about questions like about my life, but the lady, I guess she does it over the phone, but she said you have a black dog that passed away that you lost, and he wants you to know it's not your fault. Like, that's weird. How's a dog going to tell you that? But she, like, the weird thing was, I never told her about this. I never told her. I wasn't talking about my dog. She had no idea about this. How would she know that I had this jet black dog and that it's not my fault? Which was weird.
Which is probably why she did what she did. So I want you to remember that. And you were left with someone else's dogs, and you loved them like your own, and you did your best. And if you know the dogs went out with their boots on. You like to go into nature to you know, it does something to your soul. That's what dogs do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Before I had those encounters with that juvenile and the jet black one with the white stripe, I didn't care like if whatever it was got me. Like I was willing to do what it took to see one. It was like I don't know how to explain it to you, but I was numb at the time, so I was like, whatever this is, I don't care. Like I'm somewhat scared, but not really. This next encounter, I know I got a lot of them, but they truly happened. This isn't like something where you take a blurry photo with your cell phone and say, "Oh, I saw Sasquatch 2 weeks later after looking at this photo." Like I saw this with my own eyes. All these encounters, like up close. So this one changes my outlook on not caring about what happens to me running into these things. It was one night, probably in the fall, after June and July, whenever I had those encounters. This is the fall, right after summer. And I was a cigarette smoker at the time. I had the window open. And I didn't want to go out there because it was cold. I'm like, screw that. I'm not going out there. So I had my hand out the window and it was like taking drags or whatever. But that's neither here or there. But I could hear this fox. It starts going nuts. It's like a fox in distress or a rabbit in distress, and it just sounds like a chimpanzee getting ripped apart. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? There's something going on out there. And I get the spotlight out, and this distress call is going on this whole time. Throughout this entire story that I'm about to tell, the distress call is just going off. And I see this fox come out of the woods, out of the tall grass, into the yard. And he goes through the yard, back into the woods on the other side. And then a few minutes later, another fox comes out of the woods and he's real low to the ground, crawling real low. Like I said, this whole time, this distress call is going on. And then a few minutes later, another fox comes out of the woods into the yard. It's a pretty big yard. And then he goes through the yard to the other side of the woods. And then all of a sudden, I hear like bunch of animals running up towards the house from the woods, and it just sounds like a big herd of deer coming towards the yard. Just so I shine the spotlight over there, and I see about anywhere from 5 to 7 sets of eyes, and they're all low to the ground, and they're kind of like going back and forth like that. And I got the spotlight out on them. I open up that camcorder, and I'm trying to like record all this. All I got was that distress call, but I'm trying to record it and it's all on auto on the camera. Like you can go to manual mode and set the settings and maybe be able to see, but everything was on auto. I don't know how to use this camcorder. All I know how to do is how to like turn it on, record, that's it. But I'm shining the spotlight at this group of creatures and I'm like, that's a group of deer. Like that is definitely a group of deer because the eyes are real low to the ground and they're kind of like bobbing back and forth, kind of like whenever you see them in the highway and you're about to hit them, it's kind of like that. And the yard from my house, from the window to the woods, is like 70 yards, like 50 to 70 yards, probably like 70 yards. And I'm shining the spotlight at them and they're just bobbing back and forth. And I thought, if that was actually Bigfoot, those eyes would be way higher off the ground. All of a sudden, one of those sets of eyes goes up to about like 10 feet plus. I don't want to exaggerate and I don't want to undershoot it, but it rose up like an elevator, just to about 10 feet. And I knew like, whoa, that's Sasquatch for sure, 100%. And whatever that one is that just rose up, I've never seen him because they're all the ones that I've seen are probably about 7 feet, give or take. And all of a sudden I hear from the other side, from where that distress call was coming from, where the foxes came out of the woods, I hear and it's getting closer and closer and closer. So I swing the spotlight from the group of what I thought was deer over to whatever's coming, and I can hear it getting closer. And it's like a big lumberjack coming. And at this point, I'm kind of shaking. So I shine the spotlight into this gap in the woods because it's pretty thick. There's like cedar trees, even though it's fall time. the cedars are thick. So I'm shining it through that gap, and I'm waiting for this thing to cross. And no joke, about it's probably like 7 feet, 6.5, 7 feet tall. What I think, anyways, from the house. 7 foot tall Sasquatch walks through that gap, and he's like a gray color, round head, demon black almond shaped eyes, big brow ridge, and he never looks over at me. Like I'm shining the light right into his face, and he like it's like he's not getting hit by the light. Like he just ignores it. Like he's looking at that group of Sasquatch. That's where he's going to, was that whole clan of Sasquatch. And mind you, whenever I was lighting up the Sasquatch that I thought was a group of deer, the spotlight is not penetrating deep into the woods. It's only like penetrating like the outside of the woods. So all I see is like this yellow greenish eye shine. And like I said, there's about 5 to 7 sets of eyes. But yeah, this squatch walks across that clearing, and I'm hitting him with the spotlight, and he joins up with that other group of Sasquatch. I guess they were coming out for the night, and possibly they group up during the night. Maybe they were hunting. Maybe they were hunting the foxes. I don't know. Maybe I don't know exactly what was going on. But after I seen that, yet again, how I told you when I heard the dog man call, I slammed the window shut. I did that. I slammed the window shut, and I was like, "Holy crap! They're out there. They're actually out there." And I didn't go outside that night. I was terrified. Like I didn't want to go outside until the next morning.
Were you there alone?
Yeah.
Oh, no way. That would
Mhm.
not have been a good feeling. I bet you were locked and loaded, weren't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
I,
But I just made sure not to go outside at nighttime. So it's probably about 2 weeks after that, they did the same thing again, except I didn't hit them with the spotlight. You could just hear them walking around out there, bipedal footsteps out in the woods. And it seemed like every 2 weeks, it happened about 3 times after this, every 2 weeks, they would come back and they'd be walking around out there. So by this point, I ordered some type of cheap night vision binocular set off of Amazon. It was like $250. This is best I could do. It
mhm,
was called like Boblov. That was the brand, something from China. But it basically had like this little TV screen in it, and it was night
mhm,
vision. Like you turn it on, and it had two bright IR lights on the outside. So you're looking at the TV screen on the outside as the two red lights. So they came up again about 2 weeks later. I couldn't see them. I could just hear them in the woods. I knew it was them. And whenever I turned this device on, it was like really bright on my end. I'm trying to look through it, trying to see if I can record a Sasquatch. And it seemed like where I was hearing the noises, every time I pointed that IR night vision camera at them, it would get up and walk off into the deep woods. So I'd pan around, then I'd hear another one get up and walk off into the deep woods. And then it happened a third time. I'd pan around and it'd get up, and you could hear him walking off in the woods until like you couldn't hear the sound anymore. But after I used that device, they never came back and did that. I don't know if it was the IR, what it was, but like I said, it looked like two red eyes because the IR, it's not like
mhm,
real good night vision where you can't see the IR. This was like
mhm,
cheap night vision. So I looked probably like a demon to them, but I think they could see the IR, the infrared beam coming off of it, but they
mhm.
never came back after that. I
I
mean,
was
not they didn't do that like where they walk up to the edge of the yard.
mhm. So you kind of regret that, don't you? But that's a lesson learned because you hear that over and over and over in the field. That once they see that, they keep their distance, and which
Mhm.
is another validation.
Yeah, the strange part is I had trail cameras out there. I would check them. I just wouldn't get things. I got things that were questionable, like, oh, is this a Sasquatch head? It kind of looks
Mhm,
like it. Maybe it's pareidolia. I'm not sure, but like, I just know with the trail cameras out there, they were just walking around them. They wouldn't walk in front of them. So you always hear people say, "You put up trail cameras, they'll leave your property." That was not the case because they were there, and everything I told you about happened with trail cameras out there. But they
wow.
didn't like that device that I used that day.
I imagine not. You look like a little demon. I don't think so. You scared a Sasquatch away.
I
You
did. I
get
scared them away. I mean, every time I'd seen them, when I seen the juvenile, the jet black one, like it's almost like I scared them away. Like they were more afraid of me than I was of them. I was too
well,
shocked to be afraid.
well, I imagine they've seen what people do to each other. They can probably know what people would do to them if they could. So,
Yeah, I think they're pretty well aware of what humans would do to them because they watch us hunt, gut deer, and kill turkey, and they're probably watching people fight with each other, on the rivers or people that live with each other. They watch us from the woods and they know how humans are. And people that do evil things when they think nobody's watching, these things are
oh my
probably watching.
goodness, as yeah, not really to go in my background, but I spent 17 years seeing what people do to each other. And then I spent another 5 years seeing what they do to animals and the cruelty and the you don't stop unseeing it. So yeah, if I was a Sasquatch, I'd stay away from people.
Yeah. And the reaction, like if you're a deer hunter, the reaction of a deer when he figures out you're there or he catches your scent is like run. You go by a bird, he's going to take off flying. Seems like animals have this natural instinct of humans are no good. You need to get away from them. They all want to run from us.
Well, we give them we give them a lot of reasons to feel that way.
Domestic animals are different, but wild animals, it's like they have something wired in their brain, in their DNA that tells them humans are bad. Get away from them.
Was that your last encounter at that property?
I got one more. Yeah, one more on this property. So it was probably about a year later. Um, I kept walking nonstop after I had that encounter with the spotlight incident. I I would walk around every day looking for answers. Eventually, a year passed by, and I was like, all right, this isn't working anymore. Like, I've had experiences where I think I hear them, or actually, okay, before I tell you this encounter, okay, so it was that fall. Sorry, I'm jumping around. It was that
It's
fall. I was in the woods bow hunting. I set up my XOP deer hunting stand. It's like a hang on stand, and it was probably around 3 in the evening, and I couldn't find a good tree to set up, so I got on some crooked tree overlooking the creek, and I'm sitting there at 3. It's a nice day, nice fall day, and I hear one of them scream. Like it was like a loud whoop, but it sounded like a tornado siren mixed with like a sonic boom. It was just like a like it was loud. I don't know how to explain it to you, but it was extremely loud. And then after bow season, in that same spot, I was rifle hunting, and one would be down there rock clacking, clack, 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 clack. I actually got that on video. He did that several times. I'd be walking up the driveway. He'd be right there, right? Like where I seen the Sasquatch. Like you should be able to see him, but I couldn't see him. You could hear him rock clacking, just hitting two rocks together. I think they were warning each other that I was in the woods. That's the only thing I could think of.
be like, y'all watch out! Here comes Miguel.
hmm So,
Yeah.
like I said, I kept walking around the woods nonstop, and that whole summer, it was probably about a year later, I thought like, okay, this is not working. Like I haven't seen another one since. And I started sitting down in a chair out in the middle of the woods, and to me it seemed like there was something out there, and you could hear like little sticks break, like little movements in the leaves. I was really sensitive by this point because whenever I'd seen them, they made no noise. That jet black Sasquatch with the white stripes, whenever he walked off, I told you I watched him. He was walking on solid oak leaves, and you couldn't hear any of the leaves crunching. Like he was dead silent walking through there,
Wow.
and he was a huge creature. So any little sound that I heard was kind of like triggering me, like there's something there. And I'd look and I'd see like robins and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, it's just a bird. Obviously, it was just a small sound, little sound. And I thought, okay, I haven't walked around in a while. I've been sitting in this chair just trying to see if I can get them to come to me. And it's not working. So I snuck down this trail. I had my Crocs on. They're real quiet for some reason. And I snuck down that trail. And as I got almost down to the creek bottom, halfway down that ridge, I heard this loud grunt, just like a. It sounded like a big buck, a big mature buck, whenever it's rutting season and they're mating. Like
Mhm.
like that's what it sounded like, or like a bear. And I was like, "What the heck was that?" So whenever I look to my right, I see like this brown figure, and you could tell it had a conical shaped head, but I can't tell you what the face looked like. And as soon as I look over at him, he blows. And this is early in the morning, so you can see like the steam. Like he blew out two big, I don't know, breaths of steam that came out of his nose. But when he did that, this is no joke. It looked like somebody just threw brown dust up in the air and like the wind blew it. Like he disappeared. I don't know if it was speed. I'm not saying he cloaked, but it looked like the wind like blew dust. So that was like one of the last major encounters. I've been close to him after that, but I hadn't seen him.
It sounds to me like the more you try to get answers, the more questions you have, and the more
Yeah,
you question what you see in your sanity.
yeah. After he disappeared like that to the other side of me on the other side of the trail, it was like rapid knocks. Like someone rung the dinner bell, but it was like knocks. Like pow 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 pow.
All right, that's better. I had my husband turn the light off. So, after that, when was your next experience, or what's the next story you're going to tell me?
Hmm. Next story.
I'm
Okay.
here now.
Okay. So this is one that I missed that I forgot to mention. So during the fall too, I had a lot of experiences in the fall as far as experiences, not encounters. An encounter is when you actually see one with your eyes. You encountered one. An experience is where you hear them, you know they're around you, but you didn't see it. So this is an experience. But I guess I didn't tell you guys this part. I don't know how I left it out, but whenever I seen the juvenile, the jet black one, my back was out. Like all of the stuff that I told you guys, all the negative stuff, my back was completely out. Like I could barely walk. So I was walking the driveway to make myself feel better, like trying to stretch out that sciatic nerve. And yeah, like I said, life sucked. Like things kept getting worse. It wasn't that I was just making it up. Like one thing, it was one thing after another. And it was that fall after I had my encounters, and I went to a state park. Well, actually, one of my buddies that I used to work with, that job that I left, he told me this was years ago that he was hunting that state park and he saw a Sasquatch creature. He saw something brown moving in the woods. He thought it was a deer, so he raised his 30-06 and he was looking through it and he was gonna shoot whatever came through. And he said all of a sudden his face just got white. And I'm like, "What did you see?" He said, "Well, I saw a Bigfoot." And he told me this when I used to work in the engineering department. He worked in the shipping department, but he told me that, and he said it was a group of them, and he said he was so sick that he couldn't pull the trigger. He was scared, and when he got out of there at nighttime, he got on his four-wheeler, and he could hear limbs and trees snapping behind him as he was like leaving that area. I never discounted his encounters. I just said, I don't know, maybe he's telling the truth, because whenever he told me that, I hadn't seen one. But he told me a good place to go hunting, to go bow hunting. So I went to that state park, and there was this tree off the side of a food plot that was knocked over off the Ozark Trail, and I couldn't walk very well, so I didn't set up a climbing stand. There's no way I could carry all that stuff, so I brought a chair, and I was sitting behind that tree on the ground. And that whole day it was real windy. I got out there early because I don't know, I like to get out there real early. And I could hear what sounded like a woodpecker across the food plot that I was looking into, and it was real thick and there were cedars, and it just sounded like a Morse code, like tap 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 tap. So I was sitting there all day listening to it, and I thought that's a woodpecker. That's what that is. And then once it started getting close to dark, I heard this loud wood knock where that tapping was coming from. Like it was still going on, the taps. They were just tapping back and forth together. and I heard loud wood knock, but you could hear the stick break. So it's like it smashed a tree or a limb up against a tree. And I just thought like, okay, that's not normal right there. And I'm sitting there waiting. It's getting dark. This doe comes out in front of me, and it was whenever I bent down to reach into my backpack, I look up, there's a doe, and she took off. And I was like, oh my God. The only time I move throughout the whole time I'm sitting here, that's when a doe comes out. And then I look behind me. It's real windy by this point. There's two does that take off running behind me. They never saw me. They're just like running from something. I'm like, what the heck are they running from? Maybe they caught my wind. And all of a sudden, way down in the valley, I hear this loud wood knock. I mean, it sounded like Mark McGuire cranked one out of the field with a wooden bat. Pow! And I'm like, oh, wow. Like, I got wood knocks going on around me. And then behind me on the Ozark Trail where I walked in at, I heard a loud wood knock. I mean, solid knock. And by this point, it's dark. And I'm like, I have to walk through that to get back to my vehicle. So I got out of there, got to my vehicle, and I told my friend about it. Like, hey, I had these wood knocks happen out there. The one that told me he had an encounter in that area. And he's like, I'm not surprised. I've heard that before. I told another friend, hey, we need to go back out to this spot. It's like a month later in December. So we go back out to that spot where I heard the wood knocks. I go across the food plot, and there's these pines back there. We find structures all over the place, giant X's, arches, and all kinds of stuff. Like a lot of the best structures that you see on my channel, on my website, those are from that area. And that's how I found them, though, was by going back to where I heard the wood knocks a month later. But the next major experience, it's after I start the channel.
Mm-hmm.
I got a buddy named Bill. He had some encounters down in southeast Missouri in the Mark Twain National Forest. I go down there and make a video on what he experienced. He saw Sasquatch laying at the edge of the woods, and it got up and walked off. He hit it with the flashlight, and he could see like all the detail. But we were there that day, and we went down to the creek bottom. We found like what could have been tracks
Mm-hmm.
down in the creek, and we heard a loud thump, just like what I told you at my place, where it sounds like somebody picks up a log, throws it on the ground, you can feel the ground vibrate. It was just like that. So I filmed that whole day. We didn't really hear too much. It was getting dark, and I'm thinking I'm gonna go home because this guy's only got like 5 acres. He's surrounded by Mark Twain National Forest, but he's only got 5 acres that we can go through. So as I'm getting ready to leave, like I'm literally standing there with the guys around the campfire. I'm like waiting for them to stop talking so I can be like, I think I'm gonna go home. Before I can say that, the Sasquatch come out and they do loud wood knocks right there in the wood line, and like it was on. And basically, I pulled out my Zoom recorder and I set it up at the edge of the yard, and I'm recording these things. And they're wood knocking, breaking limbs, dragging limbs around the woods. It sounded really weird. And I was asking them questions like, can you do a wood knock? Can you push over a tree? And they would do everything. Like they weren't talking back to me. They were quiet. Like they didn't say anything. I
But
couldn't
they're
see them. They're in the woods. But they would do it like 30 seconds later after I asked them to push down a tree, like crack, smash. Like you'd hear trees being smashed. And I got that on audio, like clear audio. It's some of the best audio I've ever heard.
well, in their own way, they were answering you. They were talking back to
Mm-hmm.
you.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, really, that's amazing. So, when you were telling the story about the doe coming out in front of you, my computer had come. The power cord had come out. Would you be upset if I asked you to repeat that again?
No, you're fine. So whenever I was in that food plot,
Mhm.
um, I could hear the Morse code going back and forth, tap, 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 tap,
Mhm.
tap, tap, tap. I thought it was woodpeckers. And then one of them smashed like a tree branch on a tree, like smash. It was like a loud whack. And I thought, okay, those aren't woodpeckers. So it's getting pretty close to dark, and I bend down, try to get something out of my backpack. I don't know if I'm looking for my call or
Mhm.
something. When I look back up, there's a doe that came out of the woods, and she was getting ready to come into the food plot, and she takes off. And I'm like, oh man, the only time I move, this deer takes off. About 5 or 10 minutes later, after that, I hear two does running down behind me, and they're hauling butt. Like something's chasing them. And I thought, man, these things caught my wind because the wind's kind of swirly. It's blowing everywhere. So I thought that's what it was. Then down in the holler, way down in the valley, I hear this loud wood knock. It sounded like Mark McGuire hit one out of the park with a wooden bat. Pow! And mind you, like this state park, there's no houses. Like it's all solid woods. So I'm like, okay, that's weird. And then about a minute or two after that, I hear the same wood knock on the Ozark Trail behind me. So I have to walk directly where that Sasquatch was to get back to my vehicle. And that was pretty frightening because it's dark time. I'm like a mile and a half from my vehicle and it's pitch black and I got to walk through that. Um, I tell my friend about it that told me about that spot that I used to work with. I told him about what happened. And he's like, I'm not surprised. I've heard that from other people. I told another friend about the wood knocks, and this person actually wanted to go in there with me. So we went back a month later after that happened in December, and we went to that spot. We went across the food plot. There's a pine thicket back there, and I was like, this is where I heard the wood knocks. When we walk in there, there are giant tree structures back there. And I mean, no doubt that these are created by like something. This isn't just trees that have fallen with the wind. These are structures that I've documented. I got them up on my website. I've shown them on my channel. Like these are geometrical patterns, arches, X's, and like some strange language, almost like Chinese writing, like pine trees weaved together. And it was just an entire structure area. And that's how I found those structures was by going back to where I heard the wood knocks. So
So,
it all
so
added up.
yeah, when you put it all together, it does add up. Um, would those be like what they call the glyphs, or
Hmm. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
pretty incredible.
Yeah. It
So,
was pretty amazing.
so you went from not caring what happened to you to I've got to walk past that. So,
Hmm.
to me, that
Yeah.
tells me you come a long way with your life. Just some
Yeah.
insight there.
Yeah. Basically. And um, the next experience happened where I'd seen that creature in I think 2018 by Merrimack Springs, where I saw something where I got out of my Mustang, walked back, and I saw something black on all fours, and it hid behind a tree, and I was like, "Oh, that's a smart bear right there. That must be an intelligent bear." Um, I was bow hunting the other side of that state park on the other side of the Merrimack River, and I was up in my deer stand, and I saw this buck. Or no, I realized I didn't bring my headlamp. Like, I'm not going to be able to break down this tree stand and put it all back in my backpack properly without leaving stuff way out here. So before it gets dark, I'm like, crap, I got to get out before it gets dark so I can put this stuff up. So I start crawling down the tree, down my climber. And as I look around the tree, I see this buck staring right at me across the field. And he's kind of like squinting, looking at me. I'm like, and I freeze. I'm like, please don't see me. Please don't see me. Because I'm going to crawl back up there, pick up my bow again, and then try to get this deer. So I'm staring at him. We're having a staring contest, and he's like looking at me. Of course, he trots off. I'm like, dang it, man. As soon as I try to get out of this stand, that's when he comes out. So I breaked everything down, and I'm walking out of the state park on a chalk road. And every food plot I pass, there's just deer running everywhere. I'm like, oh my gosh. And once I get about halfway down that trail, going back towards the parking lot, I hear something walking right next to me, paralleling me in the woods. Just sound like a big giant buck walking with me. I stop, he stops. I'm like, okay. I start walking, he starts walking. Now, mind you, every deer or food plot that I passed, they took off running. And you could hear him like blowing and stuff. This thing was like staying close to me. So I'm like, there's a freaking bear paralleling me. I stop, he stops. I start walking, he starts walking. So by
Not
this
fair.
point, I'm like, I can't run because I got this backpack with my climber and my bow. I got everything. My camera's inside of there. I'd literally have to like take it all apart, take all that stuff off to be able to unzip that little like that little pocket that has my camcorder. I'm like, there's no way I'm unzipping this. So I'm trying to walk as fast as I can. And as soon as I stop, it stops. I'm like, okay, there's something following me. And all of a sudden I hear this noise and it gets closer and closer. And it's two guys on e-bikes and they fly past me. But for a second, I felt safe, but they're on e-bikes. So like a few seconds later, you don't even hear them anymore. They're gone. And I'm like, oh, crap, this thing's still next to me walking. And it would only walk whenever I walk. So I don't know if it was Bigfoot, but I think it was.
That would be a classic sign of one trolling you.
Yeah, yeah, that freaked me out. And the next major encounter that I had was at the Mark Twain National Forest in southeast Missouri. I went down there to investigate a property, and Bill was a property owner.
Mm-hmm.
He had seen a Sasquatch at the edge of his yard around 3 in the morning. He'd gotten up, he had his flashlight, and when he shined his flashlight, there was a Sasquatch that was like laying down on its side, and it got up and like walked off into the woods. And then I guess he says it was a female, but he got a really good look at it. So I was there that day trying to make a video for the channel. I took his report, and his buddies that were with him, they had some encounters too in different areas about 45 minutes away. We investigated down at the creek bottom. We found like some tracks. I mean, it could have been tracks. There were like impressions in the mud,
Mm-hmm.
but there was like oak leaves and water that were like inside of the tracks. So we weren't really sure. As we were looking at the track, we heard that loud thump, like somebody picked up a log and threw it on the hard ground. And my friend Steve's like, "Did you hear that?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I heard that." Nothing else happened that whole day. Like we investigated the area the best we could, and that's all we heard was just that loud thump, and we found tracks. So at the end of the day, I'm thinking I'm probably gonna go home. It's getting dark. These guys are talking, and they're all around the fire. And as they're talking, I'm thinking like as soon as they stop talking, I'm gonna tell them, "Hey, I'm probably gonna go home for the day. I'm tired. I'm worn out." Before I can even get that out, this loud wood knock happens right there in the woods,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody, like there's 4 or 5 of us, we all just look in that direction. Bill's like, "Do you guys hear that?" And I was like, "Oh yeah!" Like it was like action time. And my GoPro just died. My camcorder batteries were dead. For anybody who's wondering, all I had was this Zoom H1 audio recorder. I'm like, "This is the best thing I got." So that's what we're gonna use. And I set that up at the edge of the yard, and I'm asking it questions. Like that Sasquatch is like 20 yards right there in the woods, 20 feet, 20 yards. Like he's right there, but it's dark. It's a cloudy night. You can't see into the woods. And I ask it to do a wood knock, and it wood knocks like loud, sharp. They got percussion to them. And there was probably about 3 Sasquatch walking around the perimeter of the property. I asked it too, "Can you push over a tree?" Crack, smash. Like even the guys, like they wouldn't go near that thing. Like they were over there by the campfire. They were terrified. And I was like standing right in front of it. And they
Asking them
asked
to
me,
crash trees.
yeah, they're like, "Are you all right, Miguel?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm all right." You can hear all this on the audio recorder. And Bill had a bag of apples, the property owner, and I was like
Mm-hmm.
tossing the Sasquatch apples. You could hear the apples hit the ground and roll to it like its feet. It never touched them. Like it wouldn't like grab the apples. Like it wasn't like trying to eat them. It was just like it didn't care about the apples. I don't know what its intentions were, but I think they came out because that day we cut down trees like with a chainsaw. Like we did this on purpose to get their attention. We cut down trees. We shot tannerite with an AK and an AR, or I don't know. You can block that out so YouTube won't know.
I'm 2A, baby. I'm 2A. Keep going.
Okay, well, we shot tannerite, and you could hear the tannerite echo through the Mark Twain National Forest. Boom! Like it would echo like a jet going through the valley. Like it was that loud. Somehow, like that sound traveled all the way through that woods, and we started a fire. We put cedar and pine tree in there. We were burning oak wood, but we put like one piece of cedar, one piece of pine to get that smell out there. So we cut down wood, we shot tannerite, started the fire, and then right when it got dark, we all did calls. And
Yeah.
like I said, I was going to tell them I was going to go home, and those things showed up. We don't know if like the cutting of the trees with the chainsaw aggravated them, since they're super sensitive. They could possibly hear through the pads of their feet. They use echolocation. Like they're really sensitive to like heavy machinery. It ticks them off. It's their woods. We don't know if it was that, if it was the tannerite, same thing. The sound of it like triggered them, or just because it was an active area. We were in an active area and they were already there. So it's hard to say.
The vibration part makes a lot of sense. I mean, you, it's like you know it, but it never comes home until you hear someone say it. That's
Hmm.
actually it makes a lot of sense. That's
Yeah.
incredible.
That next morning, we could hear them all vocalizing in the Mark Twain National Forest. It was so cool. Like if anyone's ever heard turkeys calling to each other in the morning, or like elk communicating with each other, it was like that with Sasquatch. It was extremely magical, and it was so cool. I don't know. I can't even describe the sounds that I heard, because it was like unlike anything I've ever heard in my life. I've never heard them communicate like that. I've just heard them scream at me.
That's a pretty incredible experience. You know, most of us will never have that.
Yeah, I was thankful that they invited me down there and I got to experience that, because, like I said, I've been walking around every day trying to see one again, trying to experience things, trying to like document it. And the more I did it, the less it happened, and life started to get normal again. And it's like, whoa, this is weird. It's not normal anymore. I'm not experiencing Bigfoot stuff. But I started realizing, like, hey, that's been your whole life. These things never existed till they showed up on your property that one time. So yeah, well, I mean, I got a lot of stuff probably, but it's hard for me to think of everything. Mm, I mean, I've heard a lot of wood knocks, a
Mhm.
lot of activity, I guess, after this, a lot of experiences, but just here and there. But what I told you was the main, the main stuff.
Do you realize the impact that you make on people when you tell their story?
Yeah, yeah, it feels good knowing that like I'm helping that person out by listening to what they have to say. And then whenever I put that video out, people in the comments are like, wow, I had that same experience, and I've had an experience there too. And like, it's just like a chain effect.
So you went from a really dark time in your life to where you're having physical pain, mental anguish, brokenhearted. You lose, your dogs, and you turned that around and you made that a positive, and you created a road where people could come to you. I think the experience with the Sasquatch helped you heal, but I think each time you help a person and you extend that gratuity to them, that it heals you a little bit more each time. And I think the road you took, you are where you are supposed to be, and you do great things, and you will continue to do great things. And that is one of the reasons I was so honored to have you. And those aren't just words. People see it. They see the way you interact with people, the way you sit on their porch and you just share a moment with them. Sometimes that's all people have. And I
Yeah,
get
yeah,
you do
absolutely.
good.
And I appreciate you saying all that. And after I had these encounters and experiences, even still this day, it's all I
Mhm.
think about. It infests my mind. And it's just like I think about that juvenile, what it looked like, its eyes, its hair, every movement it made. Like I analyze that every day. And it was eating me up inside thinking about all this nonstop every day. So whenever I started the channel, it gave me an outlet to hear that other people are having these experiences. And I'm like, I'm trying to search for people that have like seen the same ones that I have. I know there's a lot of people that have seen Bigfoot, but I'm looking for like the same descriptions, the same experiences, I guess. And throughout that journey, I've found people to talk to and made a lot of good friends. And like you said, I turned something that should be negative,
Mhm.
bad to see, into something positive, and I molded it into my future and what everything has come to be.
It was meant to be. And I think that one of the questions I did want to ask is, did you ever find someone else that's seen the ones with the stripes on them, the white stripes
Yeah.
down? You did?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I've found several people. And actually, where I told you at the Mark Twain National Forest,
Hmm.
where I was like right in front of a Sasquatch asking it questions, can you wood not, can you do this? There was a guy that was watching my channel and he thought I was like from Idaho or something. He's like, "Oh, I love your channel. I watch it all the time. Me and my wife love your channel. We got experiences too." And he sent me his experiences, and I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa! The location you just said, that's right down the road from Bill." He's like, "Wait a minute, you're in Missouri?" I'm like, "Yeah." Well, he talked about this jet black Sasquatch I think his grandma seen with white stripes. And when he found out that I was right up the road, it blew his mind. Like he couldn't believe that. We became good friends. He's from the Half Inch Wrench crew, and we do research all the time. And that was crazy because I told him I was like, I know you're telling the truth because I'm right up the road.
Oh, well, surprise, surprise.
Hmm. Yeah,
You
and
know,
I
good.
have found other people that have seen that same description with the white stripes, and
Mhm.
I think like that's why they call it like one reason they call it the skunk ape in Florida, like that white mixed into the jet black or whatever color it may be.
I know in North Carolina we have the patty type, but we also have the slender athletic types. Do you run in a lot of those in Missouri?
Yeah, like the
Just
tall, lanky
slender.
basketball type.
Hmm.
Yeah. Uh-huh. I
And
know, like whenever I was in North Carolina at Wiseman's Peak, I saw the orbs at Brown Mountain, Brown Mountain
yeah,
Lights.
oh
I seen
yeah.
them there. Yeah. So
Well,
I've
if you
seen a lot of stuff.
well, if you ever go to South Mountain in North Carolina, just crazy things happen there.
Where at?
South Mountain, South
Okay.
is near Morganton, South Mountain.
Hmm.
I'll send you some information, text message, but it's pretty crazy. I mean, they've actually had people run off the mountain before. Watch the people, but there's a lot of strange activity up there, and I know more than one person's been run off the mountain.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Mhm.
That does sound like a good area. There's a lot of Bigfoot reports in North Carolina. It blows my mind. I think it's
Yeah,
like one
wait,
of the top states off the BFRO or whatever you want to call it.
Uwari. We used to we go to Uwari a lot. That's a good spot. If you ever come down to North Carolina, you have a standing invitation to go out with us.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good to me. And I'll definitely reach out to you. I know I'm going to be out there in the future. So,
That'll be
there's other stuff I didn't mention. I don't know if you want me to.
absolutely.
Last year, I mean, we're kind of going to bounce around back and forth because it's hard for me to do all this on the fly and like keep everything in chronological order. But last year, I've been seeing a lot of those orbs, a lot of UFOs. Some could have been Starlink, but I was trying to film a lot of this stuff, and I walked out one night after just filming. I left the camera inside, and whenever I was walking back to my house, this large triangle floated over the house, like real slow. I mean, it was huge, like a black triangle. It had
We
three
did.
lights, three bright
Red.
lights. The one in the front was bright, the one in the back left was bright, but the back right one was brighter than the rest. It was weird,
Was it
but it
red?
was no, it was like a blue color. The two, the front one and the back left one, they were like a whitish color, but the back right one was like this bluish color, but it was brighter than the rest. But it was probably like 100 yards across, maybe more, and like it slowly floated over the house. Like it felt like the ground that I was on was moving backwards, and that thing was
Wow.
like still. Yeah, it was really weird. One time, this was years ago, and me and my buddy Bruce, the same one that we saw that dog creature jump out of the road, eat that possum. I was with him. We went to a party in a town called Bourbon, Missouri, and I probably drank like 2 beers that night. I didn't really drink too much. I didn't want to be in this town that's like known for fighting at parties and stuff and be like real drunk. So I was like, I'm only gonna drink two because I like want to watch my back. I don't want to like get into some trouble or whatever. So I got home around 2 in the morning. Bruce dropped me off, and I went to bed. I woke up in my bed, and I was looking around. I'm like, okay, I'm awake. Then I noticed I couldn't move. Like my eyes were open, I could breathe, but that was the only thing I could move was my lungs, my eyes, and obviously my heart was beating. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't move my body. And I was sitting there. And I remember hearing my fan to the right of me oscillating, and it was going real slow, like. Well, when I looked over, there was this gray alien. I swear I'd put my hand in the Bible and take any test like lie detection. There was this little gray alien, probably about, I would say like 4.5 feet tall. And he was just looking down at me. And he had no expression on his face. It's kind of like if you're looking down at ants, like real serious.
Mm-hmm.
He just looked at me. And whenever I saw him, I kind of like panicked. I tried moving. I couldn't move. I was just like locked into place. And I'm trying to move, but I can't. And I can see this thing just staring down at me. And finally, I was able to break free from it. And I knew I was awake the whole time. People are going to say it's sleep paralysis. Maybe this thing caused it, but I know I was awake. I could think. I was conscious. Like I know what I saw. And finally, I sat up and I was like, oh my gosh. Like I don't know how to even explain that one. Well, like the feelings that I had, but yeah, the strange part is what gets me is I've had paranormal activity. I've seen UFOs. I've seen an alien, and I've had all this Bigfoot activity. I've heard a dog man, and I've seen this hellhound. What does this all mean? Is it connected? I don't know. I mean, I want to say it's not because they're physically out there. These creatures. There's aliens out there. Maybe they're not connected, but most people don't even have one of these things. Like they've never seen a ghost. They definitely never seen a cryptid. They've never had anything happen. Why does this one person have everything happen to him?
Why not?
I don't know.
Maybe you're just more open than most
I guess
people.
so. I guess
But
so.
why not? Why
Hopefully
not?
it's yeah, hopefully it's nothing bad. But another story is I was in Jalisco, Mexico. Oh man, how old was I? I think I was like freshman in high school. But my parents, they got a few houses down there. That's where their family's from. And we were in a town called Holos. So Jalisco's the state, Holos is the town. And my family went out that day. I don't know. I think they were visiting like their family. I stayed at home alone, and I decided like, hey, I'm bored. I'm gonna go into town, into the market. So I walked like a mile, 2 miles, maybe even more into town. Is a long walk. And when you're going through these towns, it's like, I don't know, kind of like Italy. Like there's the big basilicas, like big churches, and it looks like Spain. Basically, I came there. I got into the market, and they're selling all kinds of stuff, and they had a bunch of DVDs laid out, and there were like horror films, like Saw 1, Saw 2, the Exorcism of Emily Rose, The Conjuring. Well, I don't know if The Conjuring was out at that time, but they had like those types of movies.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked out a few movies, and whenever I got back up to my house, it was getting dark. I put in The Exorcism of Emily Rose, and I was watching it. I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch this. Whenever I got halfway through the movie, the priest was like doing the exorcism on her, and like things were getting crazy, and I'm just like, watching this movie, and she starts speaking Latin in the movie, or like saying, like talking this language that no one can understand, and it's honestly like pretty creepy. Well, all of a sudden, the power in the house goes out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on like on the second floor. It's a pretty big house, and it's pitch black. I'm like, oh man, what the heck happened? So I'm trying to feel my way out of this room. I'm like touching the wall, touching the door, going through the hallway. I go down the stairs. As I'm going down the stairs, I'm like feeling the wall just to make sure like I'm not gonna fall. And I get to this living room, to another hallway on the downstairs part. And as I'm going through the hallway, I'm still feeling my way out, and I go out the front door. As I walk out the front door, you can see the yard because there's like street lamps out there and it's lighting up the yard. And all of a sudden, this black cat runs out in front of me. Wow. Like his hairs are standing up on the like on end. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this freaking black cat freaked me out. Thank God that's all that was. Well, when I look to my left, there's like this black mass on the ground, and it looks like a circle. And it looks like someone poured like ink or like black paint, just like a perfect circle on the ground. And I'm staring at it, I can see it clearly. And this figure stands up out of that hole, like it was like it's crouched down and it stands up out of that hole. And like we're pretty much face to face. Like that thing is like 5 feet away from me. And I get fight or flight and I'm like, run. So I took off running. I had like little kid legs again. It was just like, and this figure, this shadow person, I'm telling you, like it wasn't like, oh, I thought I saw a shadow. Like we were face to face. This thing was a solid mass, blacker than any black I've ever seen. And he was probably about 6 feet tall. He looked like a male mannequin or like the Silver Surfer, no hair. And like you could see his whole shape, but he had no face. You could just see the shape of this thing. And it seemed like whenever I was watching that movie, whenever that priest was trying to exorcise
Mm-hmm.
whatever was in Emily, whatever he said caused this to happen. Because I feel like that thing caused the power to go out. It fully manifested when the lights went out. And I ran across the street. Like I went out because this two-story house has like this big fence around it, and the fence is like a 12-story brick wall. It goes all the way around the place. So I went out that fence, out into the street, and across the street, my parents have another house, and they're by this point they're home. They're over there with my aunt and uncle drinking tea. I run in there. I'm like, somebody's out there. Like, you guys need to come check this out. And I knew what it was, but I didn't want to tell them. I just saw like a demon. And they all get up and take off like with me. We all go and check because they think someone's breaking in, but I want them to see what I saw. When we get there, there's nothing there.
Wow. But
Yeah.
but you think they believe you saw what you saw? They believed you.
No, no, I just told them that somebody was breaking in. Like I saw somebody. I didn't want to tell
Oh,
them that I saw
okay.
a shadow person because at this point I didn't know what shadow people were. I knew I saw something, but
Mhm.
when you hear descriptions of ghosts, you think of like these girls like in white dresses or like something white and foggy, like moving. Like this was different, and it was messed up feeling for sure. Encountering this.
Wow. I don't know a lot about it, but I have a friend that does. Have you ever checked to see if Missouri has a lot of, I think they call them earth lines? It's where the energy intersects. You know what I'm talking
Yeah, I've heard of those. Shoot, I can't even think of the name right now, but I know what you're talking about.
about?
The whatever
Um,
parallel.
yeah.
We're on one of them here in Missouri, yeah. But where this shadow person encounter happened in Mexico, those
Mhm.
gravel roads out there, for some reason, like there's like white rock, they're like chalky white roads, but there's like crystal rocks, like solid see-through crystals. And maybe that had something to do with it. I'm not really into
Energy
all that, but I hear that yeah, they have energy. Like the German watches, they use those crystals, and
crystals.
you never have to change the battery because that crystal will run it 24/7 forever.
Well, there's I don't know if you follow David Pilates, but a lot of his missing people and stories has a like it's around quartz and um,
Granite.
granite. Yeah, I'm sorry, and
Mhm.
granite. And I mean, there's something to it. There's something to that energy. I tell people all the time, the earth is full of it's everything has energy, and I do think there. I think that you're right. There is something to it. I mean, I have a friend named Emmy that could explain it better. That I probably could reach out to her a little later and better explain it. But it's everything's energy, and that's why I asked you about I forget what she calls it, but the earth lines. Is she's
The ley
the
lines.
the ley lines. That's it. The
Mm,
weirdness happens on the ley lines. The high strangeness, and there's something about the energy there. And I was just wondering how that would lay out with the experiences that you've had like that.
yeah, yeah, which is pretty strange. Um, I think there could be like some type of correlation between the ley lines and the activity that takes place in the area because one strange thing that I found out after I had my Bigfoot encounters here
Hmm.
was whenever I looked on the BFRO's website, there are sightings 5 minutes down the road on the Merrimack River. I just
Wow.
never tell people that because I don't want to give away where I live, but the Merrimack River sightings they're pretty close to here.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Hmm.
So, um, you told me about the videotapes. What was there any other paranormal or strange events that happened?
Mm, there's other paranormal stuff that happened in that old house I used to live in, but it's
Hmm.
I don't know, it just kind of freaks me out talking about it. So I think we'll
Mm.
leave it with that. But I know where I had my Bigfoot encounters at, the same area. There's the History Channel show. I think yeah, it's on History Channel or Nat Geo. I think History, but it's called Giants in the Ozarks. That's this same area. So I don't know if the giants are connected with the Sasquatch creatures, and I think they are.
So, when the eclipse is going to come on, what is it, April the 8th? Are you
Hmm.
going to be out in the woods, or are you going to put recorders out, or are you going to do anything special with that? Because it's about energy.
Yeah, the group that I do research with, one of the groups,
Mhm.
we're camping down there in southeast Missouri where the eclipse is supposed to last longer, where it's supposed to go directly over. And yeah, we're gonna hang audio recorders. We're gonna camp. Um, bring the e-bikes. We're gonna ride during the day and try to get those recorders out there in different areas, far away from each other. And yeah, we're gonna see what happens. I mean, I think it's interesting that there's like the X over the United States, and there's like that A frame,
And
and they got a meaning in Hebrew. But I also think it's interesting how they resemble the Sasquatch structures with the X, the asterisk symbol.
yeah,
Maybe
they
there's
now
an
they from what I'm hearing, it's that they're saying it will affect animals or warm-blooded beings. So you probably need to watch your six out there. They might get a little crazy on you, but I'm pretty sure you know that.
yeah. It's hard to say what'll happen.
Yeah,
Last time the eclipse went over, I was at work.
I have
So
a feeling. I have a feeling whatever happens, you're going to be up for it.
yeah, yeah, you never know.
Yeah,
Hopefully they come out though, and we can document some of the activity.
that would be great. That'd be great because I know you'll have it on your show, have it on your podcast.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to film the whole thing, and it's going to be on Sasquatch Theory.
That's going to be awesome. Is there anything you want to leave us with?
Um, no, I appreciate everyone who supports the channel, people who believe in this subject, and the people that haven't had encounters and experiences that tune in and are really kind to people like myself and say, "Hey, I've never seen one, but I'm open to the subject." I can't stand people that are like, "There ain't no such thing as Bigfoot. There's no photos, no video, no evidence. It's all BS." Like, I appreciate the people that are kind and just show love. Not saying you have to believe, but you don't have to be
Mhm.
a dick to people.
Exactly. Well, usually at the end of the interviews, I ask if there's someone you want to give a shout out to or a tribute to, or it could be your team or someone that's had an impact in your life, or maybe someone's property you've been on that you formed a bond with. Is there anyone you'd like to give a tribute to?
Yeah, I'd like to give. shout out to my friend Bill from the Mark Twain National Forest. Thank you so much for inviting me out to your property after you had your encounters. And I wouldn't have gotten that audio if it wasn't for you. And I had some awesome experiences out there. I met a lot of really cool people after going out to that property. And recently, he lost his wife, Debbie, to breast cancer. And he's been having a really hard time. So I just hope his heart heals, his mind heals from all this, and you're a really good person, and I hope you keep pushing through. Thank you.
Well, that was very sweet. Miguel, thank you for coming on the Not So Perfect Bigfoot show. I'm very honored that you shared your story, and I look forward to following. Well, I've been following you since you started, but keep doing great things, keep being boots on the ground, and wherever you go, I wish you the best of luck.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that, and I hope that you have the best of luck as well. And I can't wait to have you on my show as well.
All right. Thank you, Miguel. You have a good evening.
Yep, you too. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.